Good evening and welcome to this candidate forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Norwalk. The League is a nonpartisan political membership organization which builds citizen participation in the political process. We are dedicated to providing information to voters to make informed decisions at the polls. My name is Mary Oster and I will be the moderator this evening. We will be hearing the positions on local issues from the candidates for the Common Council in District D. The audience is in listening mode only and can see all the candidates, moderator, and timer on their screens. The candidates cannot see or hear the audience. The Q&A and the chat have both been disabled. The audience did have an opportunity beforehand to submit questions, and we will have some of those questions a little bit later. All forums hosted by the League will be recorded and can be accessed on the League's website and Facebook page or on the League of Women Voters of Connecticut YouTube channel. We will begin by asking questions prepared by the League of Women Voters, followed by questions submitted in advance by Norwalk voters. These questions have been vetted by a bipartisan panel. The forum will end with a closing statement from each candidate. That's a 2-minute closing statement. The order that the candidates will answer in was determined randomly in advance. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer the question, followed by a 30-second rebuttal by any other candidate. Our candidates this evening are Diane Jellorette, Heidi Alterman, Tom Keegan, and Heather Dunn. Let's begin. The first question goes to Diane Jellorette first. If you're an incumbent, what have you specifically done for the city? If you're a newcomer, what are your top 2 priorities?
I am a newcomer for the Common Council that I hope to be on. One of the things that I want to do is to encourage the city to do smart planning. We're growing very quickly, but we have to be smart about how we're planning and building out our city. And we also have to decide how big do we want our city, and I'd like to be part of that decision making and strategizing where we're going. My other priority is the school system. I have raised 2 children through the Norwalk public school systems, and I think that where we're going with our schools and providing money, additional support, curriculum is the way to go. And we have to make sure that we are on track to continue to support our schools and make it the best possible school that we can possibly have. And we have a very diverse community, which adds on to that. But that's where my 2 priorities are.
Okay, thank you. Same question goes to Heidi Alterman.
Hi, I'm Heidi Alterman. I live on Sherwood Street in Cranberry, and I'm so excited to be here with everybody. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having me, and I just wanted to thank everybody else for doing this. My 2 big things, which I am not sure if I have the same as all of the people that would vote for me, so it feels unfair that I get to answer and they don't, but my main priority is mental health awareness in this city. Everybody's been through a tough time. I think we all can realize and admit that. I think a strength of Norwalk is that we can come together to work on problems within the city, but also within relationships. My second one is 2 parts. It's environmental sustainability, but also community outreach. I know they may seem strange to be together, but I think the more we get together with our neighbors, the more we talk, the more, we help when a storm comes in and some tree limbs are down. I think that gets community engagement. I think it gets people talking. Sometimes they talk about the problem and sometimes they talk about the positive. So once we're working together and people are actually having conversations about things that matter to them, then we can focus on environmental sustainability. To me, this is a thing that the entire community has to come together. to be able to solve. I won't have the sole idea. You won't have the sole idea. I think it takes everybody working together, listening to what is important, listening to what can be done and what has been attempted to be done. So I'll just recap. It's mental health advocacy. I plan on, as a council member, I will advocate for more community service programs and proper funding for that. Environmental sustainability as well. Everybody in Cranberry wants land preservation. I feel pretty strongly about that too. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. And Mr. Keegan.
Yes, first, thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting these forums during the week. Sincerely, thank you, and best of luck to all of the candidates, and congratulations on your candidacy. As the only incumbent amongst the group and the only elected Republican, several things that I've been able to accomplish, I believe, in the last 2 years, is to establish relationships with the other members of the council, they being members of the Democrat Party. So having those relationships and being able to speak to them on certain levels about a variety of things that face the city has been something I've been very proud of. Not only that, I've often asked the city itself to do a better job communicating what is going on with the electorate, with the residents who live here. And I think that we've been able to do that. Specific things, if you want to talk about things that you can reach out and touch, things that you can see. I've worked very closely with a number of the league, the baseball, softball, football leagues in the community, in renovating and fixing up fields and playgrounds, making them suitable for play for all the kids. We've also been able to establish a tree advisory group. We're working very hard to make our tree canopy bigger in the city and the things like that. But again, establishing relationships with the rest of the council members, I think, has been one of the most important contributions I've been able to make. Thank you.
Thank you. And Heather Dunn.
Hi. As a way of introducing myself and what I've done, I've been here for 35 years that I've made this my home. I started out in South Norwalk. My first entree to civic engagement was to get involved in the Summer Art Celebration, as an art major in college. I wrote grants to bring free art programming. We installed giant murals. I actually was responsible for the giant star that's in City Hall. And, I got to really work collaboratively with, over 200 volunteers throughout the year. So that was my start. Once I moved from South Main Street, I moved up here to Silvermine. I really got involved in the community and trying to protect the feeling and what really is special about this neighborhood and Cranberry as well. Protecting open space, because we know that adds value to our community and raises the money in our grand list. I am also the Red Cross. I got involved with the emergency response team with you, Mary, right? And I work on a lot of health initiatives as a community leader in that way. I then transitioned, and now I am the I work for the disaster response team in recovery for the Red Cross, and I am the supervisor for recovery in Connecticut for the Red Cross. And I spent a lot of time doing that, and I love meeting with clients and connecting them with services and referrals and things like that, and getting to know. We have some great, supports here, support system. And being the president of Silvermine Neighborhood Association, NASH, is great for me to collaboratively help solve some of the problems that occur, like, trees being pruned improperly. Stop there.
Thank you. Thank you. Question number 2, we will start with Heidi Alterman. And that question is, what is the most pressing issue facing your district?
Again, as a nurse, I'm going to say the most pressing issue is going to be mental health needs. So every day I do my best to talk to as many people as I can, one, just as a person, two, as a person running for Common Council in this city. And I hear consistently, I'm so upset that, I wish that had happened, but that sort of conversation seems heavily prevalent right now. So for me, one of the immediate concerns of my neighbors is mental health. I think our city does a really good job with case management. I'm so glad to hear that Heather does things like the Red Cross, but I think we can do better. I really would like to advocate for the fact that we have some programs in place that could be bigger. I think sometimes instead of just saying we need more funding or we need to raise taxes, one of the things I would like to work on is collaborating more with private sector companies. We have a lot of nonprofits that work really well alongside the city. And I think that is really important.
Thank you. Mr. Keegan?
Yeah, hi. I believe that one of the issues that we face in District D that's a problem for us is basically quality of life issues, including traffic and the walkability of our neighborhoods. The traffic problem is more related to how aggressively we drive as a society. I think that working with our police department and having enforcement of our state statutes related to traffic, having more educational programs about the proper way to drive under certain circumstances. And then the other thing would be pathways and walkways and sidewalks in District D. I don't think there are enough of them. I think we need more, especially around our schools. I'd like to see more of our children walking to school than we do see today. I also believe that we're affected by things that happen in other parts of Norwalk. So to focus solely on District D would be giving, not doing justice to the city itself. I think that many of the problems that we see in our urban core, be they apartments and density that people are a little bit confused about and don't want to see, well, we're affected by that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dunn, same question. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, got me? Okay. I think I can, I kind of put it into two categories. You know, we have two issues that affect my neighborhood that I'm always trying to, you know, I always end up at City Hall. I have good relationships with a lot of the department heads and they're very helpful, but they probably see me a little bit more than they want to at times. But a lot of it has to do with as Tommy said, the increase in density. You know, even though we try to maintain, you know, our zoning as it is, and, you know, we have a lot of AAA zoning and things, when we have developments put in, especially we have ones probably within the last 10 years, a lot of the people a lot of the homes downstream because of that, and a lot of the clear cutting that's happened with the trees, they're experiencing a lot of flooding, and we are in desperate need of some curbing. You know, not necessarily we have pathways and not necessarily sidewalks, but we need some flood mitigation for some of those houses that have been impacted by some of the development that's going on. Obviously, traffic. The police department's really wonderful. I love working with them about, you know, trying to mitigate some of the speeding that's going on, and I've worked with the DPW to talk about some of the ways to reduce the speeding in the area, especially now that we don't have a neighborhood school anymore. We have a lot of, you know, a good portion of the kids are coming from outside our area. And so we have a lot more buses and cars coming in. So we need to, you know, figure out how to manage that best. And so that's one of the things that are impacting us. Let's see. And I think we really just want to preserve the culture and the feeling of our neighborhood.
Thank you. And Ms. Jelleret, the same question.
When I've been walking around and talking to different people, one of the high points that they bring up a lot is the traffic. And both live in the Cranberry area, and I've been to Silver Mine, and it's pretty much the same story that I keep hearing. It's just, what are we going to do about the traffic? People are driving too fast. And some of the things that you can do is think about ways to calm the traffic, because we don't do that. And again, that's looking at smart city planning. Is like, what can we do for traffic calming? What can we do to help our neighbors be safe and be secure? And that's really what we're looking at. I love walking around my neighborhood, and there's probably not enough curbs in order to stay safe. So again, looking at what do our neighbors want? What do we want in order to be livable, to be healthy, to be safe? So again, I hear that all the time, and that's one of the hot buttons. And in District D, we have wonderful parks, and we want to maintain the open spaces and land use. So that is very important to the people who live here. And the pathways, and walking paths. So that's kind of why people live in District D, because we just love all of that. But we have to be, again, smart about maintaining that and working with the community and with the different organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidates, I do apologize, but on the last question, I forgot to ask if anyone had a rebuttal. And now I'm going to ask if anyone has a rebuttal to this question. So either question, if you would like a rebuttal, Ms. Dunn, or I'm sorry, Ms. Alterman.
It's okay.
It's okay. Both of our names start with H. It happens a lot.
Thank you.
It's not so much a rebuttal, but I agree with the walkability issue. It is actually, so I've done research papers on this. It is really important to me. But I wanted to highlight a few. I'm sure every single one of us has come across this when we are canvassing, right? Some of us are going door to door. I leave seed packets and information that's printed on plantable paper. I was really scared today. We were walking and it's walkability.
Okay, good. Anyone else have a rebuttal for either of the first two questions? Ms. Dunn?
Hi. I also think we need to look at what kind of businesses and what the planning for our area looks like. I know that, I spearheaded trying to block giant BJs from coming in, and I worked with a lot of our Cranberry residents in the same way, trying to get to a point where we didn't have 18-wheelers coming through on very small roads. So I think we need to do a much better job of planning and not just voting yes or rubber stamping every new development that comes along, and plan better.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals on either of those first two questions? Okay. Question number 3, we'll start with Mr. Keegan. What is your vision for Norwalk's future in 10 or 20 years?
That's a very good question. There's so many different neighborhoods in the city of Norwalk that we could probably answer that in 8 or 10 different ways. I believe that we need to have a very vibrant, active, busy downtown area. Wall Street in particular. I drive through Wall Street many, many times during the week, and I just wish it was more active. I wish there was more going on there. And I know that with proper planning and with good collaboration amongst the council members, the redevelopment agency, that is going to happen. So that's something that I look forward to in the next decade. The other thing would be the waterfront. I think our waterfront is second to none. We have beautiful harbors. We have active plans to make our waterfront even better. I've spoken to members of the Harbor Management Commission. There's belief that we can put in visitor docks so that people from other communities can take their boats, dock their boats at Vets Park, and walk into the Washington Street area. They can walk into the Maritime Center. They can go to the mall. That's another thing. I think Vets Park itself is very underutilized. I think that we can do a lot of great things in Vets Park.
Okay. Mr. Keegan, I think, does everybody else hear him breaking up? I don't know. I've had some internet issues.
My vision for Norwalk is
Okay, you know what? Hopefully Mr. Keegan will be back and we'll give him a couple seconds maybe to finish up that thought. Let's move on to Ms. Dunn. And oh dear, Mr. Keegan has disappeared.
I think he might be trying to log off and back in.
I hope so. Okay. All right. Same question, Ms. Dunn.
I feel you. It's, you know, being remote for a year and a half, you know, as a Norwalk High School teacher, I feel you, especially during midterms when your Wi-Fi goes out. Is really hard.
Yeah.
But we'll make it through. I really, actually, as an aside, I really like that they're kind of doing meetings at, you know, in the city hybrid, which is nice. In the future, what I really look forward to is increasing the diversity in a lot of ways in the city. I really want to see more diversity in our housing options. I feel like our bigger houses are getting bigger, and, you know, small apartments and things are getting smaller. And, you know, I think that we need those mid-range houses for seniors to retire in, and, you know, entry-level apartments. I think we need diversity in educational options. I'm really excited to hear that my neighbor is looking at trying to help with some trade school options post-secondary. We have great, NCC is great, but I think we need to expand our options and the diversity of things that you could do post-high school. I'd like to see more diverse businesses. We've lost a lot of our industrial zoned areas, but, you know, industry is more than just, you know, heavy manufacturing. And I'd like to see diversity there. Even in the way that we have, you know, we have big giant Costco and we have small mini marts, but things like the Cranberry Market, those mid-sized businesses, I'd like to see more of, and I'd like to see them supported through funding, you know, rather than large developers, you know, getting incentives. I'd like to see more diversity in thought and points of view being respected. I'd like to see diverse voices on the Common Council, obviously. That's why I'm running. Tommy has been fighting the good fight, and that's great, and thank you. But let's keep that moving forward. So,
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jelleret, the same question?
Yes. In the future, I'd like to see a more, unified city. We are this bunch of little towns, and I am the director at the Norwalk Historical Society, so I get to see a lot of things across the city up close. And Mr. Keegan had talked about the Wall Street area, and I'm very familiar with what's going on there. And they really are working on trying to make that a real downtown. It's called Uptown, and they are bringing in new people, new businesses, but it takes time. And also looking at the zoning regulations that no longer fit what we're doing today, and definitely always looking at what is needed for the future, because some of those zoning regulations go back 50 years. It's like, but we've changed, and it can no longer apply. So I'm looking for a much more diverse diversity within the city, and the diversity is growing in the city, and we have to be inclusive of everyone and everything that's in Norwalk. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the future. And I plan to be here, and I've been in Norwalk for 27 years, and I've lived in District D, love it. I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. So I'm definitely vested in what goes on in Norwalk.
Thank you. And Ms. Alterman.
Hi, thank you. I think I may have a unique perspective here. Not only am I new to politics, I've been following, I go to all the meetings, but I've lived in Norwalk for 7 years. So I'm not brand new, but I'm pretty new. And I have a different perspective on where Norwalk could be in 10 years, I think because of that. My husband and I, we have 3 biracial children. So when people talk about diversity, I think I might think about diversity in a different way. Our school, especially in Cranberry, has a really diverse population, which I love. It was one of the main reasons that I wanted to move to the area that we lived in. You know, the first thing I said was, oh no, where are the sidewalks? And then I bypassed it. One of the things that I would love for Norwalk, whether it's next month, next year, or 10 years, would be to see way, way, way more community engagement. I grew up in a city, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. So I grew up in the South, and people are heavily involved in politics there. And I am still a little bit confused as to, it seems a small core bunch here in Norwalk that are really invested in politics. And while those people, most of them here, right, are amazing, I would really like to branch out to the rest of the city, especially in District D. So Diane can attest, when we would go door knocking, people are really passionate. They have really strong ideas, and a lot of them are really unique and clever. I would love to see more people getting involved with what we're doing here tonight. I would like to see 15 candidates for every position. And I would really like to see more people attending amazing things like this. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Keegan, we lost you at the last little bit of your answer. So I'd like to circle back with you and give you about another, it seemed like it was just about the time the 30-second sign went up. Would you like to have another 30 seconds to kind of finish your thought?
And one of the last things I would like to talk about is better internet service for my neighborhood. And that being said, I also believe that maybe it's time we have a conversation with our federal, our state partners about Manresa Island. I think that is a resource that has not been tapped into. And if we're talking 10 years out, I think it's time to begin talking about Manresa. Thank you.
Okay. Any rebuttals on this question? Okay, let's move on, and we will start the next question with Ms. Dunn. If this is a long one. During the past budget cycle, our schools were not fully funded. During the past budget cycles, our schools were not fully funded. This year, the differential was made up with federal COVID relief funds. However, these federal funds are limited and will run out in the next 2 years. The Board of Ed CFO Tom Hamilton has warned the city that the schools will face a cliff in funding when this occurs, resulting in dangerous cuts to schools. As a member of the Common Council, which determines Board of Ed funding, which is the largest part of our budget, how will you address this issue? And what is your view on how to properly fund the Board of Education? And this question goes to Ms. Dunn.
Hi, you sure I don't have to recuse myself? This is like a landmine for a Norwalk Public School teacher. I just have to say, because in reality, I'd love to totally fund everything and anything we ever could possibly dream of. I've actually worked in some of our more affluent neighborhoods, and I chose to come back to Norwalk because I felt like I was ready and more seasoned and ready to make more of a difference here. So I see what really makes a big impact. I think we really need to look at how we're spending money. Yeah, I mean, it is an issue of how we bring in more money, but we have things like, I know Heidi was talking about mental health issues. It's really concerning to me at the high school level that we only have 1.5 psychologists for almost 2,000 students. And especially now that we've gone to the earlier start time, my first period class, 7:30, I have kids who are, got the hoodie over their head and they just look like they're trying to get through the day. So I think we're going to have a lot of makeup to do as far as, helping kids across the board. My experience with older kids. But I think we really need to look at how we're spending money and where, but then we also need to look out to things like, the Dalio Foundation helping us get Chromebooks and internet and coming up with new and innovative ways to support our students socially and build programs. I know one of my independent party co-patriots, or running for the Board of Ed, founded Crystal Theater. I'd like to see more programs start like that where we can maybe shift some of the paid things by the taxpayers and come up with some private nonprofit supports and really support them in engaging our students in a different way. So just thinking differently. That's
Thank you.
I'd like to focus.
Okay, same question, Ms. Jellorette.
Yes, I have thought about that, and the Board of Ed needs to work with the city together on the particular budget, especially the different line items, because I think there was a disconnect on what the Board of Ed thought they needed and what the city had allocated in terms of money. So right now, I feel that we have 2 years to really take a look at what is being spent on the Board of Ed. And I'm going to agree with Ms. Dunn in terms of looking out at the private sector to partner with outside organizations. We can do that. There's nothing to stop us from doing that. We don't have the funds internally to do it, but we can collaborate with other organizations to fill some of the voids that we may be coming to so that we do not go off the cliff, as has been stated. That to me is a little dramatic, but I think there's a different way of looking at things. Just because you've done something one way doesn't mean there's not another way of addressing the issue. So I think it's just really just taking a look at what you're doing and what do we want to do moving forward and how do we do it.
Thank you. Ms. Alterman.
Thank you. One, I think we as council members will work to avoid a cliff, first of all. But I think an instance of a way that things could be approached was last year, Mr. David Huvelman made a proposition that happened late in the meeting. So I'm not sure if everyone heard it, but he proposed that there was only a 2.7% increase for the Board of Education. That was to cover health insurance costs and things like that. I think we need to look at things like that a little more closely. I am a big proponent of as much money as we can give to schools and students. I think we should do that. There's a big need for cybersecurity in our school system, and without giving them a way larger increase in budget, there's no way to do that. So like Tom was saying, I mean, I think Tom would know as a retired police chief that there, things like fines, right, for speeding. Everybody's talked about that's a problem as far as I can tell in every neighborhood in Norwalk. I think there are things to look at. We get tax money from property taxes and from fines and fees. I am not a huge, let's give everybody a parking ticket kind of person, but there are ways to look at different areas to bring in more revenue. I think basically that's it. But again, I'm going to go back to mental health, because I think if we work on getting better communication, not only within council members and within Board of Ed members and the city, I think when we get neighbors talking more to neighbors, I think we come up with ideas that nobody, thought of before.
Thank you. And Mr. Keegan.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things are come to mind. Number one, that we should know that by state statute, you can never lower a public schools or Board of Education budget from year to year. You can raise it, you can keep it the same, you can never lower it. Our schools are funded in a variety of ways. My colleagues have indicated public-private partnerships. I'm a big proponent of that. I think the public schools do a great job of finding funds from private resources, such as the Dalio Foundation, Per and Astrid Heidenreich Foundation. We did get a number of technology improvements. Optimum stepped up and brought in internet service. The other thing that we should talk about is the efficiency study that has been agreed upon between the public schools and the city of Norwalk. It's beginning soon. We have an agency that's going to come in and look at spending from both sides, the public school budget as well as the city side of the budget. And I think we can find savings. I think Heidi said that there are ways to save money, and I hope and believe that this efficiency study will find those ways. Other than that, no one believes more strongly in the school system than myself. And to fully fund the public schools, I think it is a goal of every councilman. But we have to weigh it against the needs of the rest of the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttal on that question? Okay, I saw Ms. Dunn's hand up first and then followed by Ms. Alterman.
Hi. One thing I forgot to mention that is critical is that we do not get the funding from Hartford that we need. Our Norwalk student gets about $900 is what comes back to our city after all the money that we send up to Hartford, in relation to the bigger cities that get about $10,000 per student. So I think, somebody needs to go to Hartford, and we need to really work with them and make sure it's fair for our students. They're worth as much as those students.
Thank you. Okay, and Ms. Alterman, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make a point about something that Heather said. I would not equate the need for mental health services with children starting high school earlier. I think it's kind of an important fact that we are realigning bodies with circadian rhythms. They're going to school a little bit earlier. In some cases, I know it was a drastic change, but for me, I believe in the overall health of that movement. Then I just wanted to touch on somebody said about the Dalio Foundation. My husband works for Bridgewater. I am a huge,
Okay, sorry, that 30 seconds goes mighty fast, doesn't it? Well, we have come to the part of our evening where we are going to start our closing statements. And we're going to kind of we'll go backwards from the way we started. So first up will be Ms. Dunn, followed by Mr. Keegan, Ms. Alterman, and Ms. Jellorette. So you will have a 2-minute closing statement. And our timer will show you the signs, and we'll start with Ms. Dunn.
Okay, I'm going to be reading, so pardon me. Wire to wire. Okay, well, I wasn't born or raised in Norwalk. As a Navy brat, Norwalk was always my home base. My mom is a Norwalk High School alumni. My son, Max, graduated from Norwalk High School, and my daughter also graduated 3 years ago. I myself am also part of the Norwalk High School family, having worked there for the past 7 years as a special education teacher. Educating our students and providing them with the best preparation for a happy, healthy, and productive life is my life focus. But there's more we need to do for our children. We need to make sure they are raised in an environment that is safe from violence, which means we need to support our police, our fire, and our mental health professionals. We need to provide them with safe spaces to play and grow by ensuring they have recreational spaces in their neighborhoods that they can walk or bike to safely. We need to make sure they are being raised in homes that are safe by enforcing building codes and holding landlords accountable. We need to plan for a diversity of housing options to meet the needs of families of all sizes throughout their stages of life. We need to make sure we support their grandparents and our entire elderly population so they can age in place and not be taxed out of their homes. As our children move to adulthood, we need to make sure there are opportunities for home ownership at an entry level that they can afford. We can do this while making sure we preserve the history and unique feel of our neighborhoods by incentivizing renovation of historic properties using environmentally responsible methods, not just incentivizing out-of-town developers who build giant boxes that don't support themselves or the infrastructure improvements they require. We need to make sure our children will have access to living wage jobs, not just minimum wage opportunities provided by big box stores, fast food outlets, or a giant mall. We need to make sure that there are local post-secondary options beyond NCC or UConn that provide for training for trades with high earning potentials. I've been an activist and a Norwalk advocate for over 35 years. I will roll up my sleeves and continue focusing on problems solving and planning for the needs of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that is time. Okay, thank you. Mr. Keegan.
Yeah, thank you again, League of Women Voters. I've never been very good at self-promotion. This is the part where I tell everyone what I've done or what I intend to do. But if you'll bear with me, I would rather just tell you a little story, something that happened to me many years ago when I wore a younger man's clothes. The community I work in, I had an uncle who was the director of Parks and Recreation. I had another uncle, Heidi, who was the chief of police. My father was a sergeant in the police department, and he seemed to know everybody in town. My brother was a police captain, and I'm a retired police lieutenant. Well, anyway, as a young police officer, I was called to a medical call, and when I got there, the paramedics were attending to a woman who had fallen down and broken her hip. So there wasn't much I could do. The paramedics were handling it quite well in it. And I kind of knelt down by her side and I was holding her hand and just offering her some comfort. And then in an effort to maybe put a little humor on it, I said to her, "What are we doing laying here on the floor? What do you say I turn on some music and you and I get up and have a dance?" And she looked at me and she kind of smiled and she said, "Officer, what is your name?" And I said to her, "My name is Keegan." And she said to me, "Now there's a name we could always trust." So that's what I've got hanging around my neck. I hope that in the past 2 years, I've earned your trust. There's nothing more important to me than my reputation. I promise that I will work as hard as I can for you. And I certainly hope that you'll think of me on election day, but above all, by all means, please, on November 2nd, get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alterman.
I do want to say thank you again to the League of Women Voters, to everybody that has attended tonight, and to everyone else here on this Zoom call. One thing I want to say, I agree with Tom. I think it's my go-to. I feel very uncomfortable asking people to vote for me. I feel even more uncomfortable asking people who they're going to vote for. I think it's really important to get out and vote. If it's me, that is wonderful. If it's Diane, that is lovely too. If it's Tom, if it's Heather, A-okay. I think people need to get out and vote. I think it is an exercise we need to do more of. You know, one of the things about me is that if somebody needs something, I will be one of the first people to say, "How can I help?" That is not a gimmick that I put on signs for Diane and I. It's just my core belief. I have really simple beliefs. One of them is actually on my flyer. With every new day, we can be better than we were the day before. I think that's a really lovely thing for our city to take a hold of. One of the reasons I ran, as much as I really do admire Tom, I just want to be clear, and I really respect him. When I called last year to talk to him about something, he spoke to me for over an hour, and I really appreciated it. One of the reasons, however, I decided to run was that vote last year. So while I don't like to focus on difference of opinion is how I'll say it, I believe that our Board of Education needs more funding. I am so grateful for the last 8 to 10 years where it has been funded, but I've heard people from all parties talk about how we need more. So it's one of the reasons why I'm here. The other thing is I do a lot of community organizing. I do programs for families in need. I do things for kids. I make outdoor classrooms for Cranberry and other schools. I continue to do, I plan to do more of that. I will work very hard for everyone.
Thank you. And Ms. Jelleret.
So I love Norwalk, and I want to do more in the city. I have the opportunity to work with different parts of the city. I feel that Norwalk is at an inflection point, and I can offer my services, my help, what is needed by the residents, whether they're young, they're old, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. We're all one. And again, I want to make Norwalk not just a good city, but a great city. It has the potential. It's there. I see it. I've been here. I've lived. I'm from a large city close by, and I've lived in small cities, and I lived in other parts of the country. And Norwalk just has what I'm looking for and what a lot of people are looking for. And I want to be part of that and help our citizens and our residents and our businesses to be successful and to enjoy what we have here in Norwalk, whether it's livability, whether it's sustainability, whether it's getting new Wi-Fi or getting access to Wi-Fi so that we can move forward into the future. So, and also working with the Board of Ed, again, that is very important to me because that helps with the divide to educate our students and to give them the diversity that they need in terms of where they're going in the future. Not everybody goes to college. We have to have our tradespeople. So vote November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience, for participating. Thank you to Galen for being our timer. For more information about each candidate, you can go to the Norwalk Voter Guide on vote411.org. The recording of this forum and others will be posted on the League's Facebook page, as well as the League of Women Voters of Connecticut YouTube channel. Above all, please don't forget to vote on November 2nd. Thank you and good night. And thank you, candidates.